I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And today I have an incredible guest for you as always, and I'll come back to him in a second. But before we get started here, let me remind you of why you're here. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses. They're all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. In each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life: entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, authors, speakers, any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future, and today's guest is no exception. Quindon Hall is an awesome warrior. He's known as QTheSpeaker, a grandiose and gifted individual whose vision is to influence the world by promoting positive mindset shifts and elevation in the lives of our youth. His journey includes as many zombies, like watching his mother slowly deteriorate from a rare intensive cancer, suffering from depression, and really losing all hope. During the roughest times on his journey and his lowest moments, Quindon still managed to survive, learn, and thrive, discovering through his traumatic warrior journey that failure is not optional. Quindon Hall, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are you on the other side of our world today? You're not really on the other side. We're both in Dallas, but how's things going in your world today?
Things are beautiful, man. Learning to stay on track and create an everyday routine. So I'll try to get up early, work out, get some coffee, get some water, take my vitamins, and learn how to keep a steady routine throughout the day. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
Yeah, that's part of the routine. Routines, actually, I just read a book called Essentialism, again, and it was talking about routines, that we develop things that serve us, and we do those on a regular basis, and it's best to start those right at the beginning of the day. So I have my own morning routine. I usually don't start meetings before 10 o'clock. I get my nutrition in, I get my meditation, my devotion, get my workout in, and then I get into my day. So I totally relate to that. Well, let's do this. Nice little check-in here. We'll just really jump right into it. When we get back, I know you have an incredible story, or have a story to share. I want to hear when we come back as to how you got from where you started to where we all are today. So for the audio audience, we'll take a quick break, hear a little of our theme song, It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with QTheSpeaker, Quindon Hall in Warrior versus Zombie.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see.
All right, Quindon, good check-in. Let's go. So as I said when we got started, how did you get from where you started? And you get to define where you start. So that can be at birth, or it can be whatever makes the most sense. But where you got started to where you are today.
Well, I started off in a single-parent household. It was me, my mother, and my sister. And we grew up, wasn't in the best neighborhood. We ended up moving to Mesquite. And from there, I got in a lot of trouble. So my mom, she did an amazing job as a parent. Let me start by saying that. But she was a single parent. So she wasn't able to be home all the time. So with her not being home, I had a lot of free time, easy to get into things, right? So I ended up getting in a lot of trouble throughout the course of my life. And it affected my life drastically. So by the time I was 16, my mom had stage 3 cancer. By the time she was even diagnosed, she was already in stage 3, and it was called HER2 breast cancer. very rare intensive cancer that only one in so many women get. I don't know the exact numbers, don't quote me verbatim, but definitely rare intensive cancer. And that caused me to actually act out even more. So by the end of my high school, I was getting kicked out the house. I didn't know how to deal with the things that I was going through at the time. And it affected my life. I was like, man, my mom's sick. Nobody's around. Nobody's watching, neglect, things of that nature. So you start dealing with that. You take matters into your own. And I know a lot of people deal with that all over the world. So by the time I was in college, I was getting expelled out of college. I wasn't doing the work. I wasn't on topic, on task, doing the things I needed to do. But to me, it was a blessing that I got expelled out of college because ultimately I came home and got to spend my last 2.5, 3 months with my mother right before she passed. So after she passed, I had to find somewhere to stay. See, my mom died on the 17th. We all know rent is due on the 1st. So I had about roughly 14, 15 days to pack up her entire apartment, put it in storage, find somewhere to stay, pay a car note, pay my phone bill. It was a lot going on, and it was very traumatic. I never got a chance to sit down. I was 19. I didn't get a chance to sit down and grieve, and I had to hit the ground rolling. Boom. So within that process, I discovered myself. So from living on people's couches and sleeping on air beds and on floors, I really gave up in life. But I just felt like one day I remember sitting on a bed, on a twin bed in the living room, still with my grandma. And it was 7 of us in one house. And I just sat there and I was like, God, it has to be something more. Like, this wasn't the end for me. I was working 2 or 3 jobs, barely getting sleep. It's 7 of us in one house. I'm sleeping in a dining room on a twin bed. If I roll over the wrong way, I'm falling off the bed. I'm just being honest. So I'm just really saying to myself, I was like, God, there has to be something more. Like, I wasn't okay with just saying that was the end. And I feel like a lot of people are the same way. We all go through traumatic experiences and like trials and tribulations, but it's the people who say, hey, what is this trying to teach me? Most people can fall into those things and they just like, hey, I'm going to give up. Okay, God, you got me. I'm defeated. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to throw the towel. I said to myself, there has to be something more to offer than just giving up and being like, hey, I have a deceased mom, no dad. I'm just going to struggle, become a statistic, be in the hood. I set out to help myself first. So my thing was get a good job, get a car, get an apartment. The simplest things. I wanted to take care of myself. But once I conquered all 3 of those goals, I said, well, hey, if I can help myself with something as simple as a car, a good job, and a place to lay my head at night peaceful, I can help young children around the world who may be going through these same things just like I was, and I can help them to see, hey, there is a better way than just surrender. You don't have to give up. You have to see it through, and it will take some time, but you can get to where you want to be. And that's how I got into motivational speaking.
Okay.
I tried to find that I could help myself, helping others was easy. And it started that journey, and I fell in love with it. I loved helping people.
I love that. And I know that as a young guy is going through a lot of challenges, a lot of zombies, as we call them, it's clear that you've overcome, you've developed that warrior mindset, kind of moving forward in spite of the zombies in front of you, the challenges that are in your mind. And you've hit on a lot of things that a lot of people haven't had to overcome, but a lot of people have. So that's very powerful. I know when we start talking about public speaking, motivational speaking, dealing with youth, we're getting to today. Your mom having cancer, that's obviously a zombie, being on your own, having to be thrust into doing all those things for yourself. The thing that I always love about warriors is, and most that we talk to, is once you've figured out how to get through something, it's not unusual. In fact, it's very common for the warrior to say, hey, I could do this. Maybe I could help somebody else. And all of a sudden, that becomes part of what they do going forward. So let's do this. I know that you're really, as most warriors are, you're really excited to share kind of what you're doing, your message, your public speaking, and that kind of stuff. And I know you've got a book, so let's do this. Let's take another quick break. We'll hear a little more of the theme song from Ricky Jean Wright. It's Not the Getting There. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about today, talk about what you're doing today, why you're doing it, the value, the value you're seeing and all those. So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
How many people know your name? One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth.
All right, Quindon. A lot of crazy stuff in a relatively short journey, but it probably doesn't seem short to you. But anyway, so tell me, as we said before the break, why are you doing what you're doing today?
Because I honestly felt like I had to be the example for my people. And when I say for my people, I mean people who come from like these lower incomes and they come from the hood. And these people seem to think that there's no way getting out of this. Then these young children, a lot of people don't understand that when you see kids acting out, there's always a background story to it. When you see these young children doing things that they know is wrong, they know what's wrong and what's right. We're talking this at a young age. Don't put your hand on the hot stove, right? Kind of that thing. But people don't know how to deal with the trauma and the grief that they're going through at home, and then it plays an effect on their character. So that's what kind of got me into this whole thing.
So knowing one of the things you mentioned that we didn't hit on as a zombie, obviously, is you're kind of like that father figure that some of these young folks haven't had, or like you didn't have, right? In terms of, and I'm not saying, I mean, you said your father wasn't there, you lost your mother. So being that rudder, that guide, that Sherpa, as I like to call it, it's not that you have all the answers, you just might be further down the road and giving them some ability to follow you. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
So as far as going down that, so tell me a little bit about how you're you tell me about the value you're providing. I know you've got a book. Tell me a little bit about the value that you're providing and then the impact you're hoping to have.
So the value that I'm providing is I like to go into these communities, go into these youth centers. I don't care where I'm at. I'm all over Texas, and I'm trying to instill within the youth and in these young men and in these young women that, hey, you truly can be whatever you want to be, but it's going to take hard work. It's just about having the character, the morals, the values. I always tell, everywhere I go, I have this thing that relates directly to school. I talk about GPA. And kids often associate their GPA with a grade point average. And people feel as if your grade point average is what they need to focus on. But my GPA that I try to express is that you have to have a goal, a plan, and an action. You can get a good grade point average if you have a goal, a plan, and an action. And that's what it's all about. So I'm all about going in here and instilling in children and in the youth. And honestly, surprisingly, it has even helped principals, teachers, the staff, because it applies to us as well. It's the same method I've been using for years about how I got it. So that's the value I'm adding, and that's also what makes it unique, because I'm relating it directly to school and how it relates to them, but I'm comparing it to real life and how reality works. I often feel like children don't get a chance to see reality. We're often, because even when I was in college, you go from school from the time you're in intermediate school, middle school, high school, then you go to college, and then ping or slap with the real world. You haven't experienced anything. So I try to relate it directly to reality. Yes, it's about school, but it's about life. Things that I wish I would have been taught when I was in school.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's a lot of our education system. We've gotten away from basically giving people the tools, not only to read, write, and whatever, but also just how do you navigate things like balancing your checkbook or being a an entrepreneur. I mean, I didn't learn any of that stuff when I was in school, even, and I'm a lot further ahead than you as far as my life. I'm a lot older, is what I'm saying. So I get that, but that's brilliant. So as you look at, what I understood you saying is you go out to youth center, you're just looking for any stage or opportunity to influence a group of people, group of young folks in particular is who you're targeting. What kind of impact, if anything were possible, and oh, by the way, everything is possible, what kind of impact are you hoping to have? What are you shooting for? You want to impact millions? What's the impact you're hoping to have?
I want to have a global impact. I'm chasing the big names right now, the Eric Thomas, right? The Jeremy Anderson, the Inky Johnsons, the Brad Butlers, the people that I'm actually in connections with and that I've been around and the things that I've seen them do. The Valeries, I'm the Aisha Thomases. I'm trying to be global. I want to go around the world and connect and motivate and influence, because like you said, with warriors, which there are warriors all around the world, they leave the door open. If I go in there and do my job, it's all about each one teach one. They will leave the door open, and that person leaves the door open. And before you know it, you have a community of people helping each other get to the next level and building character within the process.
Well, for sure you can impact millions. Part of it is, one of the reasons why I do networking, and I have a, podcast and a show, and you have your book, is people can take that, and I like the each one teach one. I mean, my unique vision or my unique purpose is to change the world one dream at a time. And you say, how can you change the world one dream at a time? Well, essentially, if I help you get clarity on your dream or your vision, and then you get that, and then you're going to impact X number of people, and they're going to impact next. So you can literally change the world in that way. A lot of people say that. Tell me about your book. How did that come about?
Going back to when my mom had just passed away, when I was in the situation of being like, this can't be it. There's something more to life. So I started this journey, like I said, about helping people. And what I noticed was that there was not enough time to describe everything I wanted to put in words.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be talking for days, weeks, months, years before you can get everything out. So I asked my grandma one day, like, hey, what's the process of writing a book? And I remember her exact words being, well, you would just get on the computer and write, and I'm sure it wouldn't cost you more than the paper that you typed it on, which was wrong because they write more. But just that part helped me. So I got on the computer as I was helping children, helping myself, the things that I couldn't say. Because, you it's all about duration. Sometimes you may only get 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour to speak. So I started to type the things that I was not able to say when I had to sum up everything. And I put it into a book. And it took me 3 years to write my book. I'm a self-published author. But it took me 3 years because of life. My book may have took me 6 or 7 months. But there was a lot of times I would go through my own trials and tribulations, and I would put the book down.
Sure.
And then I would pick it back up 2 or 3 months later. So it was a 3-year process for me.
Well, I can appreciate that. Actually, I started on the warrior versus zombie, survive and thrive in the zombie apocalypse. One of the reasons why I do this podcast, and one of the editors or whatever said, your stories are great, your illustrations are great. It'd be great to have stories from other warriors. So one of the byproducts of this podcast is I get stories from people that I can use as illustrations or comps in the book. Then the zombie apocalypse hit, and all of a sudden the real zombie apocalypse, which now that's my term for COVID, is that it changed everything. And you saw all kinds of people moving in mass and in the wrong direction on a lot of things. People doing all kinds of stuff, being forced to do things, being manipulated. You just saw all kinds of stuff. So it became evident. So it extended the publishing of my book, because now I'm going back with a lot of more current stuff and making it obviously more relevant. So I get the process. Well, let's do this. Let's we got to come into what I call the land the plane segment. So in that, when we come back, I want to hear if we take away one or two things, anything from this podcast, from this, your story, from what you're doing today, or maybe something we haven't even talked about. What do you want us to take away? And then we'll talk about how to stay in touch. All right. So let's hear another snippet of It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be right back with Quindon Hall and Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God,
all right. Okay, Quindon, we are back. And as I said before the break, if we take away anything from this discussion, what do you want to make sure we take away?
Man, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because I often have this beautiful script that I've wrote up. But as I continue this journey through life, what I've started to notice is that life owes you. Make sure that you get whatever you're asking for out of it. Because it's one of those things kind of where I feel like we're all born with credit. So you know how the process of credit is: you spend it, go in debt, and then you pay it back. And I feel like through life, you have a credit to your name that you didn't really ask for. You're going to go through trials and tribulations. Look, I didn't ask to be born in a hood. I didn't ask to come from a single parent household. I didn't ask to lose my mom, right? I didn't ask to not have a father. So I've already paid for so many things in my life. And so have you, and so has everyone else around the world. So if I could tell you one thing, is like, whatever you want out of this life technically owes you that. It owes you, because whether you go and get what you want from it, it's going to take what it wants from you, regardless if you like it or not. You don't get a say-so over, hey, God, I keep my mom here. No say-so over that. I had no say-so. So the things that you go through throughout your life, and having to stay with people, sleep on couches, floors, I didn't ask for that. But I also understand that God wouldn't put you in shoes that you can't handle. So I just feel as when I'm in this journey, and for everyone out there in the world, when you're going through whatever your trials and tribulations is, in your process, get back what you're owed. Get it back. Go out there and chase every dream that you had. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're kind of you're not as motivated anymore, or you start to lack the discipline or the consistency, what I typically try to do is put it on a scale and wait. Think about where you're at now and the things you've been through already, and where do you want to be? Mm-hmm. So even when you're not motivated and you start to lack the consistency, think about it. Which way is that scale tipped? Because I tell people all the time, I'm fearful to go up here and speak in front of these children and in front of these executives or in front of these school districts. That's fearful. But it wasn't as fearful as me seeing my mom with her eyes rolled in the back of her head. That was my biggest fear. That was some of the most heartfelt and heartbreaking things I've ever had to go through. So I encourage anybody in the world, get what life owes, because it owes you. I don't care if you don't feel like you're not worthy of it. You've been through enough. Get what life owes you.
Well, I think that's brilliant. I've never quite heard it expressed that way. Get what life owes you. I will say that life is about challenge and support. A lot of people, the zombies and the successes, and there's not one without the other. If you think that life is all about no challenge, or if you think somebody else's life is all about no challenge, then you're living in a fantasy. And if you think about life is all challenge and there's nothing good to be had out of it, then you're actually missing the fact that it's also about support. Then you're depressed, right? So if you only see the challenge, then you're depressed. If you only see the good things, then you're living in or expecting to see the good things. So you have to understand that, and you said it a couple of times, you said it in your way, I love it. You're powering through. We all have challenges. It's hard work. Success moving down the journey. You know, we all have our ups and downs, just like the introduction of the podcast. We all have our wins and losses. And the key is a warrior keeps moving forward, and they have a vision for the future. And I love your vision. So you're obviously on the Be Connected platform. That's where we're live today and where the replay will be. You'll be on the YouTube channel, and then it'll be on the audio platform. But how do we stay in touch with you, Quindon? If we want to follow up with you, if the listener wants to, hey, I'd like to have him come speak to my school or my community or whatever, how do we stay in touch?
If y'all could just do me one favor and go to QTheSpeaker, all is one word.com. At QTheSpeaker.com, you have everything you need. It's the place where you can book me. It has all my social medias. You can even buy the book from there. QTheSpeaker.com is the funnel for everything you need to know about Quindon Hall. QTheSpeaker. It's a funnel.
Perfect. So QTheSpeaker.com.
Yes, sir.
Just like it sounds, all one word. That's beautiful. All right. Well, Quindon, thank you for joining us here, and I'm looking forward to the journey here, especially getting you onto this platform. We'll be able to introduce you to a lot of people with very large audiences and so on. So Lord only knows how things will go, but the key is you're moving down the path, you're on the journey, and I love it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, Mr. Dave.
All right, brother. Well, I think we're going to have to land the plane for this episode. And again, for those that are regular, we'll be back next week with another episode and another warrior. So we'll hear the final outro, if it's not the getting there, from the audio audience. And we'll be back next week with Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.